Hello, and a very warm welcome back to Widowed AF, your Chatty episode. You're here with Rosie Gill-Moss, and you jumped in too quick.
Oh, Jesus. I could see you as well.
We were so slick.
I can always see what you mean.
This is the first episode we've done in Riverside together, which is the online studio we use. So we're sitting opposite each other in the same room, but talking to each other via video type call, which is weird. But it means that you guys get to see us. So, and we know how much you want to see us. And as our former guest and friend of the show referred to it, during this overscheduled season of Sparkles, here I am. So welcome back. Thank you for tuning in. We are going to be having a bit of a chat about our weeks, about the overscheduled season of Sparkles, because any of you out there with more than one kid, or even with one kid, actually, man alive, those emails keep coming, don't they? I
think I had 6 from the school this morning, if I'm honest.
We were sitting here and our phones were pinging in unison with parent mails and things. So, and I had to, I was the mum who had to admit to forgetting the £1 this morning for the crazy hair day. So I must remember to take some loose change up later.
We went out, we had to pay online.
Oh, and yeah.
Worst app. Honestly, there's such a gap in the market for these apps for schools.
Says a man that designs tech.
Well, not that, no.
But yes, it is. I don't want to be a bar humbug, but I think widowhood does suck the joy of Christmas out of you, if I'm honest. And I also think life, I mean, it's very difficult to feel all festive and jolly when you're the rememberer of the pound. That's me. I fail at that. And you're thinking, and then they decide they want to write Christmas cards, and one of them's got to make a nativity scene, and then there's a diva meltdown because there's no speaking role for year ones in the nativity. And we're kind of rushing towards the end of it. Our kids break up next Friday. And you think, oh, great, we'll get a bit of respite. But of course, then comes the pressure to be perfect. And actually, in a very seamless segue, I spoke to our previous guest, Anna Bignell, about this idea of perfection and being a little bit kinder to ourselves. And I'm really, really trying this festive period, because normally by now I've got 2 trees up, the front's done. I'd like to say the presents are up, but that would be absolute lies. But I've normally got myself into quite a state about what we're doing and how I got everybody the right thing. And it really, really doesn't matter, does it?
No, it doesn't. And the self-compassion thing is quite, it's quite a thing. I think we forget about it quite a lot, to be honest.
Well, we're sort of, the idea of self-love was what we were all supposed to feel. And self-love, I don't know, it's a bit icky, isn't it? And I found self-compassion works much better. And I used to go to, I still don't go to yoga classes, but, or even doing them online. And they would say, what's your intention? Set an intention for the class. I think, oh, God, I don't know. I just don't want to be a bitch this week. I just don't want to cry all the time and be horrible. And I've sort of realised that what I'm wanting is, what I really am seeking is some compassion for myself, so self-compassion, and some kindness for myself, which in turn will project into compassion and kindness for the people I love. And primarily that has to be and is my family and my close friends. And then what you've got left, you give to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And that can be quite difficult because lots of us are working, and many of you guys are solo parenting, and man, that's tough. And we're also grieving, and particularly if your late partner liked Christmas, or even if they didn't particularly, it can bring up all sorts of really, really tough feelings, and it can feel like the rest of the world is living in this wonderful, sparkly Christmas bubble, and it's not real, really.
No, I struggled because Sarah was massive at Christmas. It was, it wasn't just sparkles. It was, the house would have been decorated a week ago, and I think it's in Holly as well.
Yeah,
she
she
gets
loves
quite
Christmas.
giddy and she gets excited about it. And And then you just have to beat yourself up because I'm letting her down because she expects more, but that's what Mum did.
Yeah, and it's things like the elf. So if you're listening to children in the car, just turn this bit down. I did it years ago when I only had the boys, and I've done it sporadically since, but I just haven't got the wherewithal, I haven't got the energy, and I just can't be asked this year. And I feel like, and I did actually sit the kids down and say to them, look, Christmas time is wonderful for you guys, and I want it to be really special. And we're doing lots of really fun things, and we're seeing their favourite people in the world, my mum and dad, on Christmas. So just sort of said to them, but it's an enormous pressure because we have to ensure, that everybody's got the right presents and cards and all the costumes are ready for the plays and all that sort of stuff. So I said, I'm going to cut myself a bit of slack this year, guys. And to be honest, they were brilliant, weren't they?
Yeah, they're absolutely fine.
Yeah, we've got one tree up. We've got one tree up and half the decorations outside. We're going to put up some wreaths, and then I might show you a little montage of the festivities at Gill-Moss House. And if you are watching this in video, you lucky things, you will see that I am clad in sequins. I'm just debating the appropriateness of wearing them to interview a widow at 12:30, so I may. Well, so just to bring us back onto topic, we had an interview from a really, really incredible woman called Anna on Monday. It was probably the most challenging episode you've ever had to edit, I think. Would I be right?
It was tricky, yeah. It was spread across 4 takes.
We had a few issues with tech, and you also had 2 ladies that like to talk, so it's quite a long one. But it's also a really important one because it's a suicide episode, so do be careful. But it talks about we talk about the sort of the pressures that everybody is under at the moment, but often men in quite powerful jobs who don't really feel that they can show a sign of weakness and admit that they're having difficulties, and how that can manifest into them kind of internalizing it. And the consequence of that, tragically in this case, was that he took his own life. And 2 little girls, twin girls, are growing up now without dad. And I did ask Anna, I asked her to just sort of talk to me a little bit about how you convey a suicide death to children of that age. I think they were 7, the girls. And I don't know how you do, really. It's such a complex and difficult type of grief because in a child's mind, they've chosen to leave, and that's very difficult to unpick. But Anna is very, very on it, and she's very pro-therapy and talking. And actually, one thing she did ask us to mention today was she said something, I can't remember the wording, but that CBT was not for her. And she actually was pulled up on it by somebody who is a CBT therapist. And firstly, I mean, if that's all they took from the episode, I mean, that's a bit of a shame, really.
Yeah.
And secondly, it wasn't Anna saying that she doesn't believe in CBT or doesn't believe that it is appropriate for use with some people, merely that it didn't work for her. And I can attest to that. It doesn't work for me either.
Yeah. And it's the thing with all kind of therapies, there's so many different variations. Keep on trying until you find the one that works. Like talk therapy works really, really well for me.
Yeah, same. And actually, I think people admitting or openly saying, oh, I tried that and it didn't work, means that people who perhaps have tried a type of therapy felt it hasn't worked and then thought that therapy is not for them.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about me here, actually, because this is exactly what happened to me in the early days. I had a really terrible therapist and I thought, oh, well, sod that. I'm not doing that. And whereas actually, if you're aware that there's different types and that it's quite normal for one type not to work for you, it might encourage you to look elsewhere.
And try different ones, yeah.
Throughout the episode, one of the things I really noticed was her commitment to keeping his legacy alive. And we're just going to play you a little clip now because Anna did ask to add a little bit to her episode. So this has not been aired yet, so this is fresh. So just have a little listen to Anna's voice now. She talks about how she has attempted to kind of create a legacy for him.
I guess I wanted to talk about keeping what I'm doing to keep Rich's memory alive. I don't want him to be a statistic. I'm keen to make sure that his name, there's a lasting legacy for him. that's done in an everyday. So I feel like talking to the girls about how many wonderful memories we had together, and I think that's kind of giving them then permission to feel able to talk about their dad as well.
So welcome back. You've got me again. Yeah, that's interesting. It is something I do feel strongly about myself, and many of our guests have done really incredible charity events. I'm thinking Steph May Hill's in her ball. I'm thinking Dan Froston is running, and actually, shall I just mention my man? I might put the medal behind me.
You should.
Actually,
you should.
I might do that.
In case everyone's not aware, Rosie did a marathon.
Nobody says ran.
Run. Oh, because
I got round. And this idea of wanting to publicly do something to raise awareness of either the condition from which they died, which may be mental health, it could be a terminal illness, or also just raising awareness of them. I raised some money for Holding On Letting Go, which is a local charity very close to my heart. I was actually there on Sunday doing some working with the children, because they offer 2-day workshops for children who've lost somebody close to them, and they are incredible. They really are. If you live in the Kent area, I can't recommend them enough. Once you have been supported by them, you are part of the family, which gives me goosebumps. But yeah, they're a really nice crowd, actually. Sorry, I've completely digressed. But that was a way I felt I could leave a legacy for Ben, because it would support children who may be going through or have gone through what my kids have gone through. So however you may do it, whether it is just talking about them, having photos of them, whether you're doing incredible things out there for charity, however you're doing it, it all counts as keeping their legacy alive. So many of you will be thinking of ways of perhaps you could keep the person that you've lost sort of immortalised at Christmas. And some ways that we've done it is we've done Christmas decorations with, their names on, and I've got a little photo frame that has, I think, probably the only picture in existence of my former life as a family of 5. And it's not a particularly flattering photo. Tabby is mid-vomit in it, but it goes on the Christmas tree every year. And I took it with me when we went abroad for Christmas, and I still have it. And I'll share a photo of it, and it goes on the tree, and it just makes me feel a little bit more connected to him. And I send presents to his mum, and we sort of keep the connection to his family alive, which is part of what I feel the legacy is. But I'm lucky enough to be blessed with a decent mother-in-law, so not all of you are. We'll talk a little bit about what we've been up to this week. It's been busy. Of course, it's been busy. We're in the countdown to Christmas, but it's been sort of manageable.
Well, I've been busy in the office. As people might have noticed, the new website's up. This is not a permanent feature, everybody. There we go. I'm not going to echo as much now. There you go. And the launch of it's not the launch of the newsletter because we haven't done one yet, but we started to invite people to come and sign up for our newsletter. Yeah,
I wanted to talk about this, actually. We have, we're sort of, this year was a kind of a year of experimentation, really, in terms of the podcast, because we had no idea that it was going to become I still feel really kind of self-conscious saying it, but the success that it has, and that it would have such a broad reach. And we've decided to level up a bit. So we're going to it's going to become more... we're going to have, like you say, we're going to have a really good website, which we're hoping will become a sort of one-stop shop resource for people. So if you know of anybody who is going through something like this, you are able to say, this website will have signposts, resources, blogs.
Your stories.
All your stories will be there. And so we were talking, tell you this is, I think this will appeal to the dark humoured among you, but we were discussing categorizing them. We're going to have to categorize them by how they died. I mean, that feels so brutal.
but useful, because if you in a similar situation to Anna, like we've had messages through of people saying they are in similar situations. Mm-hmm. So you're going to seek out those stories to get the feedback from it. But it's this Yeah, because the last 2 presentations you've done for the nurses and for the solicitors, one of the key elements in there is when you land in this shithole, you're in a foreign country with no guidebook, you don't speak the language. So
yeah, that we were going to try and create this place that does have all the information that's helped us. So again, we're open to suggestions and ideas, and many of you have blogs, and we will put links to them because you've all got a really valuable voice and a story to tell and support. And yeah, I'm excited. And of course, the big one is merchandise. So a few of you may have noticed that our branding has changed. We decided to have a little reboot. And even if we say so ourselves, it's pretty cool. So we've got in the progress of creating some merchandise for you. We're going to start small. We're going to start with some little enamel pins. We're just trying out suppliers and things at the moment. And hopefully in the new year, we'll model some of our own T-shirts. And if you would be interested in buying them, then that would be fantastic, because we kind of got to recoup our costs a little bit. So because it doesn't, we do this completely voluntarily. So it would be nice to keep the lights on, as it were. Yeah. And if you would like to be added to our mailing list, the link to join is on our Instagram, which is widowed_AF, or the website, which is www.widowedaf.com. I'll just say that. And we're going to populate it with some pictures and all sorts of stuff. I say we, like, I've got anything to do with anything on the internet. But yeah, we're realising now that there is a need for this and a more sort of national coverage, because obviously we recommend people go to Way and obviously I've just mentioned Holding On, Letting Go, and there's Winston's Wish. There's lots and lots of grief charities and support out there, but it can be very, very daunting trying to find it. And lots of these places are very, tragically, are very oversubscribed. And when you are seeking help, as we know personally, and you're not getting it, it can feel very, very demoralising. So the idea is that there will be instant help available, as in you can get some coping strategies, but also we're going to put as many support charities or organisations as we possibly can think of, so that if the first one can't help you, there's another one to try, and you're not left there thinking, I've got to start again. And to be honest with you, the reason that I feel this incredible connection to the team at Holding Anything Go is because I was that person. I'd called the doctors, I called CAMS. I was in crisis. My kids were desperate. I was desperate. And it was that horrible feeling of having doors closed. There's waiting lists, or no, sorry, we can't help you, they're the wrong age, or it goes on. And they said to me, you're going to be okay, we're going to help you. And those words just never left me. Yeah. So, yeah, I've gone off again, but you know what I mean. It's the idea is that if everybody wants to help when somebody dies and nobody really knows what to do, and by creating a body of work through the contributions that our guests have made, we should be able to put something together that is really helpful. Yeah. But we are taking it easy until January, I have to say. We will be putting out 2 episodes. But yeah, the socials and stuff, we try in, but you have to dig quite deep to find any extra. And
it may become a bit more formal, not formal, but a little bit more quotidian based around the website as I automate more content for you guys.
And I'll just keep sending you pictures of my sparkles.
Yeah.
That seems to work, doesn't it? So yeah, and if anybody is desperately interested in my gynecological issues, I'm disappointed to report that the coil is still in situ, and I have been referred to the gynecologist at the hospital because I've got to have it done under general anaesthetic. So I'm not in any discomfort or any pain. It's not causing me any issues. But yeah, for anybody that's embroiled in my perimenopause journey. still going. But I did have a really great consultation with the practice nurse at our local GP surgery. And I got to say, she knocked the private gynaecologist that I wasted money on out the water. She was so much more knowledgeable and helpful. So, things have been... I'm 2 weeks into what I would say is feeling quite positive. There's been no major dips in mood, no major outpourings of grief. A little bit of crazy tidying, but that doesn't do anybody any harm in the long run. So I'm feeling okay at the moment, tentatively, and it's nice. But I think you'll probably relate to me, many of you, if I say it's very difficult to enjoy, because you're always waiting for the next dip in mood or the next tragedy to happen. So we survived. Monty and I survived ice skating, though, so that I was convinced that we were going to lose a finger in the process at least. And actually, although I probably will speak to you all before then, but my eldest and I are going away for a couple of nights next weekend. So John's going to be daddy daycare. And so please send your love, solidarity and support to him during this challenging time.
We'll be fine. I'll just wear them out every single day and then...
Yeah, that's it. Like
it's dead easy, really.
Shouldn't compare the kids to dogs, but yeah, get them out for a run, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
So essentially, we'll kind of leave you on that note, really. But if you have the time, I would recommend listening to Anna's episode. It is difficult because it's a suicide episode, but it's also an episode where she talks about turning tragedy into something positive, with the charity work and also this idea of us being called brave. And then many of us will say, well, I'm not brave because I don't have a choice. And I disagree. I think you do have a choice. I think you do. I think it's a choice that you make. And the people that come on here and talk to me have all made that choice. And I'm sure so many of you listening have made that choice.
And in a seamless plug, actually, Monday's interview with Jen Plant, Jennifer Plant, not Jen Plant. Sorry, Jen. She speaks quite heavily about the choice of happiness.
Yeah. And I've been trying to kind of hack my brain a bit because essentially we're in control, but our brains like to think otherwise sometimes. So just really, and also I want, actually, just before we go, just a disclaimer. Oh, that's a lipstick rolling on the table. The sequins, it's a facade. I am wearing the sequins because it is an opportunity to show off my sequins because I've accumulated quite a few over the years, and B, it forces me out my jogging buttons and things, but also it's that fake it till you make it. If I put on some sparkles, there's some festive cheer. And so please don't be under the illusion that I am, elf, because I'm not. Sugar for breakfast is fine, but so don't be under the illusion that all is well. When you see the sparkles on the outside, we're treading water just as much as everybody else. So lots of love to all of you, and we will be back on Monday with Jen's episode, as John mentioned, and probably a little quick wash up chat on Friday because that's the last day of term and there'll be something on, won't there?
Yes. There'll be something on.
I haven't even looked at next week's schedule.
There's lots of Santa hats, Christmas dinners, and mince pies involved. I think
pound coins,
and pound coins. Yeah. I'll drop a bottle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's great for us actually, because we get rid of all our booze. But anyway, I will stop rambling into the microphone and let you guys go. But have a pleasant as possible weekend, and remember that you guys are not alone. We are here in your ears whenever you need us. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Hello, it's me again, just when you thought you'd heard the last. So I'm going to play you now it's a sort of add-on episode. Anna contacted us asking to add a little bit of more information to her episode. And whilst we really struggled to sort of edit it in without it sounding a bit clunky, we thought for those who would like to hear it, we'll play it now. So if you're still with us, here's Anna.
I guess I wanted to talk about keeping what I'm doing to keep Rich's memory alive. I don't want him to be a statistic. I'm keen to make sure that his name, there's a lasting legacy for him. And that's done in an everyday. So I feel like talking to the girls about how many wonderful memories we had together. And I think that's kind of giving them then permission to feel able to talk about their dad as well.
Yeah.
But then also the kind of wider stuff around, I did, well, actually one of his colleagues, amazing colleagues, had set up Ramble for Rich last year. And that was amazing. So many people came along to that. And I feel like I'd like to do it again. And maybe, you know, in time it'll be my girls leading it. We did also something this year in the summer called Pitchside for Rich, which was a family fun day. And they're kind of getting excited. And actually, even they both said to me, why don't we combine the two next year? And we could do a big long walk and then end up and then have these huge bouncy castles and all this fun fairground rides. And, you know,
You could walk to Kent to Woodstock. That could be your charity walk. And I promise there'll be bouncy castles.
Yeah. And also, I guess for me, I want to talk about supporting demystifying the myths around suicide massively, supporting mental health for my children going forward and giving others ideas and support. And just to remind you, I had talked about medical negligence claim, but for many reasons that's not going to come off. I think for so many reasons. I think it could be a massive fight on my hands. I've got 2 reports, one of which is fantastic. Well, fantastic is maybe not the right chosen word, but in terms of it highlights the bad practice of the psychiatrist. But there's an issue of duty of care on his behalf, so we can't use it. The other report I've got is terrible, like absolutely diabolical. Like I don't know how he's qualified to write it. Not only is it wrong in content, it's actually just a really diabolically written, grammatically structured report. So actually, for me, it's not about a settlement. I want to just, I want others to take accountability. And that's really important for me. And I want to make a complaint. I know others probably have done, but it's important that I do that.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. And I also agree with making formal complaints when you're treated inhumanely or where there is negligence. You know, I don't agree with ambulance chasing lawyers and that sort of thing. But I think in a situation like yours, you know, where there clearly was a negligence, then you're entitled to, at the very least, write a letter of complaint.
Yeah. And that's my intention, 100%. I guess, yeah. So
I think something that would be really kind of valuable, actually, Anna, is this idea of how children cope post-suicide of a parent, because I think this is probably the big one, really, for most people who will be listening, is how you explain that away and how you enable them to go out into the world without feeling like one of the only people that was meant to love them the most left them. And I think perhaps if you are able to give any hope to parents who are going through what you're going through right now, maybe that's something you'd like to add.
Absolutely. I think it's very isolating, this complex grief that we're going through. I think I shared before, I am in contact with others sadly in the same situation, and that's been a huge strength for me. Sadly, they also have children, so in terms of my girls knowing other children in the same situation is important, not to be bread and butter, but actually, you know, there's nobody that's lost a parent in their school. So I think it's important that they realise they're just not completely alone in all this.
I absolutely agree. Much like we try and find our tribe within the widowed community, it's important for them. Yeah, and I mean, I remember one of my kids saying to me once quite early on, "Have you got any friends whose husband hasn't died?" A few.
Yeah, and it could become the norm. Yeah, because I mean, even I went to this brilliant weekend away where they did get to meet others who'd lost a parent, and some families do spend a lot of time and they holiday together year in, year out, and I definitely want a bit of that,
But not full
but
throttle.
not full throttle, no.
Yeah, I did a bit. So I did a couple of the holidays,
Yeah.
and I created. But what you tend to do, I think, is you create your own circle. You know, and they're the ones that
Yeah.
stick around. And I've got a WhatsApp chat that's been going 5 years, and
Wow.
we're really tight. You know, we live far away from each other. We don't meet up as much as we like, but it was called the Widowed Witches originally. But yeah, I think finding their tribe and realizing, and I think much like you're saying here, you know, shaking off this stigma around mental health and suicide, and not demystifying it is because I nearly said normalizing, and I don't necessarily want to normalize it either. But as I mentioned to you, I'm sure in our interview, a good friend of mine recently, her husband took his life very suddenly, and the ricochets from it, just, you know, the waves just go further and further, because as well as the horror of the grief, there's so much guilt surrounding it. Everybody thinks they should or could have done more.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I've learned through my reading and accessing this course I mentioned about from the Museum of Happiness, which was amazing. One of the things that we looked at was the science of self-compassion. And actually, this was an unknown territory for me. I didn't know much about it. I kind of thought it was to do with self-esteem, but actually, I mean, it's the benefits of self-esteem without the kind of judging, putting others down. It's kind of viewing yourself as being important and actually having some self-worth, and that's okay to recognize that, particularly after a horrendous tragedy and trauma. So I guess it's just okay just to realize that it's okay to comfort myself when I'm in this much pain, because if I'm just going to continue to judge and criticize, then that's not going to help anyone at all. And actually, I want to be such a good role model for my girls. So I'm not talking kind of spa treatments and things, although that is nice, and actually that's I have done that more so this last year and a half. But,
I've got a confession. I don't like spas very much.
Do you not?
No,
Too many people.
don't. Yeah, and it's the whole walking around in a dressing gown that's not yours, and they're normally a bit tepid. But I do know there's a very good thermal bath place in London that sometimes I do treat myself to a little trip there. You go in for 90 minutes and you come out like a new, literally, because you've been in water for so long, like you've been reborn. But you're right, and I found the term self-love made me feel a bit sick in my mouth. And so I work towards self-acceptance and accepting that I have my limitations and I cannot be everything to everybody all of the time. And I cannot be perfect. You know, my house is never going to be perfect. I have 4 children. It's just letting go of this idea of perfection and giving yourself the same kind of kindness that you would give a friend. Because, you know, if you popped in to see a friend and like they hadn't hoovered, would you care? I mean, it depends. But it's that, and it's the same with the grieving and the processing of the grief and the way you might behave when you're grieving. You have to view yourself as, I mean, I look back as almost like a little girl. I think of that girl back then. I don't feel like I was a grown woman when it happened to me. I feel like I was a girl. So innocent.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Definitely. It's definitely the before and after, isn't it? Like I feel a completely different person.
But yeah, you're right. The self-value stuff, you know, it is going, actually, I'm just going to go out for a walk or a run, or I'm going to go lie on the bed, you know, in the middle of my own party. I'm just going to go and sit inside for half an hour and then come back out again. And just giving yourself a little bit of kindness and compassion, and as if you would a friend. And it's such a cliched and sounds so trite to say it, because it's such sort of therapy speak. But you have to like the person that you're living with, because you're living with yourself. Like, you can't, I mean, I've tried outrunning myself. It doesn't work. And I think this is where men perhaps fall through the gaps a little bit, because the idea of self-care and talking about their feelings and granting themselves some breaks from work or time to decompress. You know, they don't go on spa weekends, do they? I mean, a lot of them go on golfing weekends, I am aware, but it's
Yes.
perhaps that's something that perhaps contributes to this feeling of isolation.
Absolutely. And I guess if I can do anything, like I can't save Rich now. I wanted to, and I think I was trying to for the first probably good few months. You know, I talked to my counsellor as if he was still here, you know, as if I was, and because I was in that place for so long, I realise now, you know, there were so many red flags that I didn't join up at the time, but I was trying to save him. And actually I did all I can, and I so desperately sad, and you know, every single day I wake up, you know, with the shock and horror of it all, my reality. But, you know, I know that I did so much. I really did. And with complex grief, as others who've told their story to you, you know, so many complex emotions, you know, surrounding the, as you've said, guilt, regret, remorse, you know, absolute anger. And it's, I feel fortunate in that we left our last words to each other were of kindness and of love. I just I'm comforted knowing that he would have heard those last words from me and known that. Does it make sense?
I'm going to use that as a clip. That's nice. I completely agree with you. My last words to Ben, somewhat ironically, were "I love you and be safe, darling." But yes, I've spoken to people who've left after a row and they've gone out and had car accidents, and you know,
horrendous.
it's just
horrendous. And I know other people who exactly the same. So I guess I feel fortunate in that regard, in that I
funny
don't
describing
have that
yourself as
extra
fortunate,
burden.
isn't it?
No, I know. I'm one of the lucky ones.
Lucky me.
Yeah. I guess I don't have that additional burden or additional guilt, you know.
Yes.
Because I already am filled with the should haves and could haves and what I would have done, and that, you know, that I could have had a potential different outcome. But I feel what I can do now is, you know, the stats are really, really strong in terms of particularly, you know, anyone that's lost a parent, but particularly lost a parent by suicide. You know, they're really ugly, raw, grim. It's a grim read. It's, you know, risk-taking behaviours, you know, eating disorders, particularly for girls, you know, self-harm. And I just thought, what the hell am I going to do to make sure my girls, that doesn't happen? And I mean, they're only 9, and who knows, I might be looking at them differently when they
I'm always
hit
looking for things.
But
I think we'll never stop.
I know. And that's why I actually, when this opportunity came up about the resilience training at the Museum of Happiness, I just loved it. I really did. It was, you know, the science of self-compassion, gratitude, and actually I suppose I'm recognizing some of the strengths around that I have that are helping me in my healing process, that I am quite a curious person. I like to say curious than nosy. That keeps me going. I'm interested in other people and what's out there, you know, adventures ahead. And hopefully that will not stop. And I want to role model that for the girls.
Well, I'm looking at my notes here, and I'm you know, I'm saying that you grabbed every opportunity and you took it to help heal yourself, because you didn't want it to define and break them. And it's something that we kind of go by as well, as this idea that it is a terrible thing that happened to you, but it doesn't define who you are. But we know kids are horrible. We know that, you know, there's even a risk they'll get bullied about it. I mean, how do you protect them from that? And I have a very close friend whose husband died from suicide several years ago, and she's got daughters, and she's, you know, she works really hard to help them build up those pillars of resilience. But as the very eloquent, actually, Vicky Patterson, I think it was, saw a clip of her talking about, it was PMDD in particular, but it did remind me of all the kind of grief and mental health, is where you build up this stacking of dopamine or good things to make you feel good, and then all it takes is one bad mood to kind of kick down that sandcastle. So I think by
Yes.
building up this, I love this Museum of Happiness idea, but it's a process, isn't it? You have to, these layers have to be built up and set in stone almost. It's not an overnight process. You can't suddenly decide you're going
takes
to.
time. And I guess for me, I could be consumed with, and like others may well have felt this or still do, with the feeling of just kind of beating ourselves up about or feeling this sense of unfairness about the world, what's wrong with the world in terms of seeing others and they're going forward with their lives and we're missing out with that person every day, gets further and further away from when they were last here. So I guess that's why I think counselling for me, but also just talking and connecting with other people all the time, reading podcasts, which have been, your podcast has been amazing, really.
I do appreciate you saying that, because it is what we set out to do, was to be that kind of voice that you needed, because it's very lonely being widowed, and it's even lonelier being widowed by suicide.
Yes. Yeah, it absolutely is. And that's why I want to break down the stigma, because there is such stigma. I'm shocked still. I work in healthcare, and there is stigma around it still, and around friends and family. It's just an unknown. People don't. I think there's still this sort of notion that they were selfish in some way, and that's absolutely not the case. People who do this are very, very, very unwell, and they're emotionally in so much pain. They just want to get rid of that pain momentarily, not forever.
But it's a permanent solution, isn't it, to a temporary problem?
Yeah.
And I think by sort of incrementally letting out your mental health problems, whether that be by going on a walk and listening to a podcast or talking, and even saying the words, I feel suicidal. Now, I've never said those words very out loud, really, because I'm not depressed and I'm not suicidal. But periodically I just feel that way. And I managed to say it to John, and he kind of recoiled from me, because it's the worst thing in the world to hear somebody you love say. And I then managed to sort of write, because I'm much better to write than speak sometimes, and explain to him that I had to just say those words, because otherwise they just circulate round and round. And I think allowing your friend who may be in a mental health spiral, or maybe really struggling, allowing them to say, I just don't want to be here, I want it to end, but also understanding that they probably don't mean it. I mean, if you think they do, then obviously take action. But often just saying those words or writing them down is enough to release that feeling.
Yeah.
But of course, men in particular are told that that's not how you work. You don't go to work and say, oh, I'm really struggling with my mental health today. It's not, it should be, but we're getting better, aren't we? But we're still not there.
No, it's a long way to go. I think I'm my intentions are to, because Rich, as I shared previously, that he worked for a really toxic work, in really toxic work situation he was in, and there are many others who are feeling that. Thankfully, the person who was his manager has left. However, I don't know the circumstances around that, and I don't think I'll ever get to know, unfortunately. But what I do intend to do is meet and find out what exactly they're doing for mental health policies, and I want to be involved in changing that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it's not enough to be told, yes, we're doing something. I absolutely want to know. And
you want to look them in the eyes, don't you?
Yeah, completely. Yeah. I do.
Yeah, I wanted to look the guy who'd been the skipper on the boat in the eye, and he wouldn't take my calls. I didn't get his numbers. It wasn't actually until the full inquest. Oh, that's naughty. My phone was on do not disturb. Sorry. And I didn't get to until the inquest, and it was difficult. But I then, for me personally, I lost a lot of the anger I felt towards this guy, because when they laid out what the sort of story of the day, yes, he shouldn't have. There were problems, but I don't know. Hearing him talk and seeing that he was visibly distressed by it helped. And I just think, why didn't you pick up the phone earlier? Because that would have I carried so much anger towards this man for like 2 years, I think it was, before the inquest. So
that's a long time.
Yeah, and I think actually what you're doing and wanting to oversee them reforming their mental health policy, I think that's amazing. I think that's really amazing. And I think that if you do go ahead and do that, I'd love to hear about it afterwards.
Absolutely.
And you may or may not be aware that I am about to branch off into a whole new style of podcasting as well alongside this. So we're going to be talking men's mental health, women's mental health. So there's so many opportunities that I'm going to try and create for us to talk about the issues that people don't talk about enough. And kind of, much like we've shone a light into the darkness of widowhood. There's many other areas, and you are doing so much by talking about it. And I do think that the men and women who come on here and talk about suicide loss we're talked actually Dan Frost about this, but I don't, how we don't like to be called brave and strong because we didn't have a choice. I disagree. I think we did have a choice. I think we had the choice to lay in bed drinking gin and letting our kids raise themselves or be taken away. Or we had the choice to get up every single morning and take care of them and try and do some good in the world. So I think actually you're not given a choice, but you then have the choice of what you do next.
Yeah, that's true. You can't ride the waves, but you can learn how. No, what's that?
I don't know. My husband around. Oh God, if you've got no dark humour, you've got nothing, right? Actually, Liz Towner, who was one of my early interviewees, her son has a podcast called, I don't want to misname it, I think it's called Boys Get Sad Too. And obviously his father, he lost him to suicide too. So it's like the children are now starting to talk. So I have a little gem of an idea where I'm going to bring in do a special offshoot with adults, but who lost parents when they were young and how it impacted them on their life. And what I'm hoping is that it will give people hope that actually this terrible thing can happen and they can still be okay. But until I do the interviews, I don't know. But from the people that I know, and actually I have recorded one, they generally seem to be okay, and they generally seem to be.
I mean, sorry to
interrupt. No.
You know what? I've been really comforted by that. When I found, people have, a lovely school mum came forward and told me, I didn't know when it happened, that she lost her dad when she was 13, 14. And she's an amazing, very well-adjusted, happy person.
Same.
And actually, I know, one of my best friend's husbands, he lost his dad at a young age. One of my other good friends lost her mum. And I look at all these people, and actually they
seem all right.
Yeah, they are more than all right, actually.
Yeah, and they're generally quite compassionate and kind.
Yes.
And whilst you would prefer them not to go through this process to get there, I think what this will be a message of hope to people who are at that point where they're thinking, the worst things happen to my kids. What do I do?
Yeah.
And just to know that all you've got to do, it's easier said than done some days, but all you've got to do really is just show up. And I felt that whenever everything else was lacking, because, I wasn't my best self, they were fed, and they were in bed in a safe home, and they were loved, and actually that's what you can struggle to give your children sometimes when you're grieving, is to be able to give them love, because you're hurting so much. But I think you're awesome. I think you're awesome. And we can put in, I'll get John to decide what to do with this, whether it fits in within the episode.
Thank you. Maybe
is that everything you wanted to cover?
Yeah, I just was going to say, my friends, some of these people I was talking about, like, they'd be more than happy. I could give you all their number, in terms of your next podcast.
Please
some
do.
of them would be absolutely prepared to talk to you.
Yeah, I'd be fascinated to. Thank you.
There's also my sister-in-law told me about Aileen. Is it Aileen B? I don't know how to pronounce her name. Irish comedian, and she lost her dad to suicide. and you know, she's quite a well-known comedian. I'm trying to think what she's done. Well, she actually did something because my sister-in-law's an actor, so she knows. I guess that's why she knows her. But she's written a very funny article about the loss of her dad through suicide.
Oh, has she?
Yeah,
you send it to me if you've got it to hand.
Yes, I will do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's we say kids are resilient a lot, which always feels a bit unfair to me because they shouldn't have to be, but they are, and it's we were just talking, Monty and I, yesterday about his dad. You know, stood in the kitchen, and it's become some. I don't know. They become kind of like a part of your family in a way. It's odd how things change over time. But if that's everything you need for today.
Yes, I think so. Yes. Thank you.
Take care, Anna. Lots of love.
All right. Have a good weekend.
And
Bye,
you,
Rosie.
darling. Bye.
See you.